talking about, the fact is the gospel is a gospel of love. It's a love story, okay? We're not in a horror movie, and the opposite of love is fear, which is a horror movie, right? And in our brains, we function from fear or love and fear. And someone said, well, can the judge trigger the fear? Yeah, if you're involved in something and your conscience fires off and you can have I'm finished, click, you're in fear. But then the other thing is the judge does is it can lock it. The judge can lock the accusation, he can lock fear, which is why the dodgy gospel is not the power of God to salvation. The power of God to being, so the dodgy gospel is the power of judging to be trapped. Right? So let's and the other thing that came out, somebody was talking about, what about, you're talking about making parts, you know. Well, if you get sophisticated at this, let's say that you are a person without love, and you're part of a generational flow without love, and you're thinking, you've got intelligence and capability, would it surprise you that you might want to look at slicing up a human like slicing up a salami? Creating triggers, you know, in young children. That might become interesting. Then you might work out if you can program some of them. If you do this, this will happen. That could be interesting, couldn't it, if you have no love? Why, you could even take it back. You could even do it in the womb, couldn't you? Why, you could put electric shocks into the womb and start doing it that way. Gee, yeah. Bruce, are you talking about what's actually gone on and going on? Yes, I am. It's called ritual abuse in families, and it goes on. And there's been experiments to see if we can improve the IQ and all this sort of stuff. And it's all sort of, you know, sort of under a mask of intrigue, but it can also be under a mask of fear, and it can also be tied to darkness in the sense of spiritual darkness and spiritual powers of darkness as part of their frame. And that's a bit of a shock, isn't it? But now you understand how we're built, that we can flip on fear and love. It just makes sense that someone would do it, wouldn't it? Question?
The flip side of that is it's really beautiful to watch what happens as we hear the truth, and it unlocks us, it lowers our level of fear, and the questions that get asked are absolutely.
So, question from the floor saying, statement from the floor saying, it's beautiful to see what happens when the gospel is preached and people discover love, and they switch over to love, and then different things start happening, and they ask different questions, and they're different things. I was asked during the break, look, someone in my family has been through ritual abuse, which is what we just spoke about, chopping up people, right? And she said, will this be of use to you? And I said, start back at lecture 1. You've got to get the love story as the foundation. The reason we did, you know, the reason we went through the non-negotiables and laid those out, which is Jesus is in his Father, and then the next section was I'm in you, you're in me, and then the incarnation, I'm in you. The reason we laid this out was it doesn't give room for fear. If you start from the beginning and work through the eternal love story, and that before the creation of the world you were wanted, and your purpose was to be caught up in Dad and Jesus and Spirit and in their love, if that's the beginning of the story, you might have some bumps and valleys on the way through, but that's still the story. It's a love story, not a horror movie. And if you get that right, and then despite us going wrong, despite us getting dark, and living badly, Jesus has jumped into it. And he's now in us, and he's fixing us up from the bottom up, all of us. There, and he's not into those in the club that calls itself the church, and he's not in those who belong to different groups. He's in the human race. There's no specials. I'm really sorry there's no specials. If you'd like to make me special, I'll give you my BSB account number, you can drop money into it. But in the end, I'm going to get tired of it. I don't want any of that rubbish, so it doesn't work. It doesn't help people. The other stuff traps people, right? So the dodgy gospel will trap people because they won't seriously get out of fear. The new covenant we got, so when Jesus dies on the cross, his blood pours out, it's the blood of the new covenant. What's that mean? That's what you drink to in communion. When you have communion, it's the blood of the new covenant. What's the new covenant say? It says, I'm in you. Right, I'm in you. And you can ask for help. You ask for help from the inside, and he can share. They can share things with you. Okay, good. Number 2, no one shall teach his neighbour to know that everybody's the same. There ain't vertical hierarchy. And the third thing is to deal with this is all your mess is forgiven and forgotten, because it's about family and about engagement and receiving love and giving love. It's not holding up your list against you. Okay? Yeah. So that's where we're in. And if without that love story, you go to fear. And as you can see, the moment you're in fear, your capacity to receive information constricts and comes down, and you're either in a fight response or a flight response or a fear response or a vigilant. You're in some response and you cannot process. And that's really good if you want to run an institution and keep people coming back every Sunday, get money out of them, time out of them, and keep them like robots not growing. They can just be good and pay their tithes. But in the end, it burns out. It doesn't work, and there's no love, and it'll burn you out too. It's quite horrible, isn't it? Okay, so we've talked about parts, and we've introduced the concept of abuse, intentional abuse. We call that ritual abuse. Intentionalised abuse, where you try and split the person up like a salami, maybe a couple of slices, maybe 100 slices. Right? Now, if you have a person split up into 100 slices and you affirm the accuser and you affirm the dodgy gospel, what chance have they got of getting back together? They haven't. A miracle. The emergence of Jesus coming up, blowing the whole thing over. Okay. Let's keep going. So what we've got then is we can then go further, and we've introduced the concept of parts. And I'm not going to labour this point, but I'm going to explain that parts can come out of unprocessed emotion. So emotion coming through gives it air time, after a time it becomes like a part. So I'll whiz through this quickly, because the purpose of this isn't to train you all to process SRA parts. The purpose of this is so you can understand they exist, right? So let's just go through. In each little island or unprocessed part, there is intense emotion. It's not a thought thing, it's intense emotion. Emotion's taken the split, and it's emotion based on fear, and therefore the body doesn't process it. Okay? It'll be intense emotion of a 3-year-old or whatever age it was. If that wakes up when you're 45 and you have the overwhelming flood of a 3-year-old emotion, you're totally swamped. Interesting thought. Developmental age. It'll be operating at a level if it hasn't grown up and had airtime. If it gets airtime, it grows up. Meaning. It may have meaning attached to it and a belief system in it. The perpetrator may have assisted by giving meaning to it and programmed it. If you hadn't done this, you are. Or if you do this, this will happen. Or there can be spoken commands in them. Triggers. If the memory island or the unprocessed memory gets near something, or something gets near it, there can be defence mechanisms activated. And it can be stored in the body. Now, this is a really good clue. What does the word soul mean for you? If you're a good Greek, like I was, the word soul will mean like a spirit in me. Right? If you're a Hebrew, of the Hebraic origin, soul will mean organs or your body. And if you look at an Aboriginal art painting of a crocodile, they have the outline of the crocodile, then they have the organ stuck through it. Right? Now, in the Psalms it says, "My soul cries out to you, O God." Dad, I'm crying out to you. I'm crying out from my soul. What does it say in the Hebrew? My liver cries out to you. My spleen cries out to you. My kidneys cry out to you. The organs of the internal parts of me cry out to you, O God, that's your soul. But with Greek translations and Greek thinking, we've got this little wispy soul thing. No. Now we're understanding in the 20th, 21st century that when memory is processed, it goes through the body. Oh my goodness. And the dodgy gospel told me I had to be afraid of my body and escape it. If I've got to escape my body and get back to God, and I can't trust my body, it's all about escaping the body and having mystical out-of-body union with God. If I escape my body, how can I process unprocessed emotion? Zip. Does this make sense? This is why the dodgy gospel cannot heal. You just can't do it. You have to embrace your body. Now, so it's really quite beautiful to watch the emergence of somatic therapies and different things where people are learning, because when the emotion's going through your body and you have a freeze response, that'll be manifested in the body. The person will be lying there on the mat and they won't be able to move part of their body. And they don't even know that. The therapist will tap it and they'll breathe towards it, and all of a sudden they've got floods of emotions and stuff coming back, and they start processing their memories again. Oh my goodness, our bodies might be important. Not just disposable little cars that we're meant to get rid of and ignore and deny. Okay, so the storing in the body seems to be integrated with our neurology and our life energy and the flows of life in our body. We do not have a physiology of this yet. And that seems to be, that's where we are, and that's what's, so you've got people operating in this space, we're seeing things, but our physiology is not quite there yet. Now, when things play in the body, they're reliable. When people have memories, they are not reliable. So when a person is sliced up and the memory is sliced up, the brain will stitch together, a bit like Photoshop, and it will join the space that's not between the memory. It'll Photoshop it. Your brain will Photoshop your memories to make up the gaps. Yes, it does it. But while your brain Photoshops, the body doesn't. The emotion and the unprocessed emotion in the body is not Photoshop, and it always plays back the same way and is always reliable. Body memories do not lie, visual and auditory memories do.
Yeah, but how do you access the body memory?
How do you access the body memory if it's there? Which is part of somatic therapy. Yeah, we'll have to. I'll get onto that later, but not in this flow. I'll come. But don't forget the question. We'll come back to it. Usually, I'll do it now. Usually, people access the body memory because they've got a problem. Something's not working, they can't do, or they notice the pain coming in the body, or emotions coming in the body, or they're disrupted. They then go and seek help. What you could do is just tie it down with Bible verses. Get someone to smack you around the back of the head a few times and say, "Stop it!" Or you could say, "My body's sacred and what I'm feeling is sacred and it's part of my life, and I've got unprocessed emotion. I don't quite know how to manage this, and I can get some help from somebody." And if your gospel's such that you don't believe in the dodgy gospel where you're climbing back to God and you have to deny yourself, you can begin to embrace that part of yourself. And just the fact that you're going towards and embracing that part of yourself, a lot of the time it begins to flow and heal. Yeah. Because if you go towards it, you're not doing the lock of the conscience and being locked by guilt. As you undo guilt, you can go towards it. As you go towards it, then it begins to flow. Okay. Now, so not only have these things, and you might have programs and commands there, then you have secondary things, which is like around it. Fearful emotion, you avoid the triggers. You've got meaning in this little part, and then you have secondary meanings around those, right? And it gets complicated. And this can grow into another part. We then develop protectors, if we've got more than one part, because the protecting parts of you start managing. We've got to stop all the triggers, and we've got to stop these things coming back, and it's like a manager trying to manage the childcare centre. So it's a very difficult part for people. Now, in every island, there's a fear profile. Freeze, flight, faint, submission. Is that very complicated? No. Is that logical? Yes. Is that your neurology? Yes. It's not magic. You know, they say there's magic in the Solomon's carpet. That's an ad from Australia. There's no magic in this. This is just structure. There's age, a developmental age. There is emotion, serious emotion. There are sensations there. There may be beliefs, programs, commands there. There may be triggers around them, and there may be body memories. Now, when you think about it, is that extremely logical? Just like, yeah, of course. So that's someone in darkness. Someone in darkness without love. Remember, darkness without love. Whose life do they participate in Christ? The twisting Christ's love and capabilities for evil intents, which is what we have the capacity to do in the freedom of the universe. The sufferings of Christ are till the whole universe works with love. They give their life freely till we all wake up and become loving. Who would do that? I'd be smacking him around the head at the first opportunity. Yeah. You know, we do not have the graciousness and the freedom. And what we then impose and say, see, don't worry, God's going to get them. There's going to be a judgment. They're all going to have the shit beaten out of them, roasted like, you know, barbecue sticks in hell. Go for it, God, bring it on. What's missing from that is love again. That's actually just darkness again. And the love story is, Dad's saying, Bruce, you'd like them to be a barbecue stick in hell, wouldn't you? You've had enough of them. How about I get them to be my son and know who they are and let them love me and I love them back, and we get this process where we get love flowing between us and they get redeemed. And I go, too much. Just sort them out. Do you see the difference between us and Father, Son and Spirit? We've all got our line where someone or something should be dealt with according to our standards. Right? And then we create a gospel like that. That's not love. So Father, Son and Spirit don't work that way. Sometimes I wish they did, unless it applies to me, of course. It has to be, you know, beyond my levels, just on the other side of that line. I don't have much space to operate in. Okay, so then meaning that comes, because you've got to understand we are meaning machines. Look at your life, something happens, you go, why did this happen? It's just how we're structured. We're meaning machines. And that can be utilised for good or utilised for darkness, or even just utilised and trap us. It's just how we're built. So meaning comes in. And in that you've got magical thinking. That's when a little kid believes they make things happen. If you're a little rabbit and you're about 1 or 2 and you're crying, and mum responds, you're very powerful, because every time you cry, mum comes. And every time you do this, mum does it. How powerful am I? Can you see that's magical thinking? I'm making everything happen. If you're making everything happen and bad things happen, you made it happen, you're bad. So it just flows like that. Attachment. And we've talked about attachment and how we need love and how we need security and safety and survival. There may be deep anger and rage. There may be deep injustice. Particularly if you're older. If you've been ritualised when you're older, there's a lot of injustice. And we've spoken of in the previous lectures how to manage injustice and how to get it out and how to hand that over. There may be vows and promises, and there's the Stockholm Syndrome, which is attachment to the perpetrator. I have to stay to survive, I have to stay to the perpetrator. And then lastly, religious structures, like the dodgy gospel. These can endure fear, guilt, rejection, and may be present and hinder healing. Oh, dear me, Bruce, you're saying that the dodgy gospel will actually stop people healing from abuse? Yes. So if we abuse people in churches and preach a dodgy gospel, they won't get better. That's right. Well, that's a good double whammy. We should do that. What's the trifecta? Bad, isn't it? Now, if the person part has a lot of airplay, it may develop into a person. And that's when you find the person who has got the different wardrobes, or the different activities, or the Jekyll and Hyde. And these people around, lots of them. And it's one body. So how do you work it out? Okay, so that's not, let's stand back from that. The crunching on the tape is me chewing mandarin.
That's quiet compared to almonds.
He says it's quiet. I can change it. Now, yeah, Tim Tam should crunch them up. So, what we've got there is a little insight. What would it look like if you actually worked at making people split? And then you could control that. Would you have power over people? Could that be quite interesting? That's just a thought process for darkness. So, of course, that's what they do.
Is that what we call gaslighting?
It can be a technique.
Could be used.
Gaslighting, yeah, gaslighting is an accusative structure of somebody when they're accusing somebody of being something when they're not. That's more, does happen in abuse, but we'll talk about it in the next bit. But if you split somebody up and you enjoy it because you've got no love, you might then want to get control of people. Next problem you've got, this is highly unstable. Why? Who's coming up through people? Who's inside people at the bottom? They can't get to the bottom. They can't get through your foundational part attached to Christ. They can't do that. And if you speak with the people who've been undertaking SRA, they know that they call it the Christ child, the core part. They can't get through it. Jesus is at the bottom of the human race. You can slice off the salami, but you can't get to the bottom. Healing come through. Everything of Father, Son and Spirit leads to integration and oneness and wholeness, and everything of evil leads to fragmentation. And this, what we're talking about, is just extreme fragmentation. Now, for those for the tape who are looking at this, you probably had a friend say, hey, come and watch this tape 30, whatever it is, on this. My advice is go back to the start and watch the gospel section. Go back to the start, because if you don't understand union, you'll be clueless about this. I'll say it again, if you don't understand union and what we've spoken about, our discussion here, you'll just be into some sort of weirdness. All right?